I could not believe the vote ratio of Erdogan from the earthquake affected area. Mind-boggling. Yeah. Brother, why do you think people in West Virginia vote solidly red? It's the exact same thing. Do you believe the results to be legit? Yes. Turkish elections are not fair, but I guess technically quote unquote free. A lot more free than you would expect them to be. In the sense that like the votes are real. There's some every now and then, but the votes are real. Everyone will tell you that. Whereas it's not fair at all in the sense that, you know, the opposition will go to jail. The media is overwhelmingly pro-Erdogan. They have to be, but they also are pieces of shit too. TRT is the state broadcaster, TRT. In 1 month leading up to the election, Erdogan had 32 hours of coverage. Kılıçdaroğlu, who is the opposition leader, 32 minutes. Of course that's gonna, you know, this it's the state broadcasters doing state propaganda. It's like, yeah, except the entirety of like privately owned news media is also pro-Erdogan. They own everything. In Turkey, whoever is the leader, okay, whoever is like the party, will basically put his own cadre of like aristocrats in positions of power and offer them a tremendous amount of favorable contracts and give them a shitload of money. It's the same in most countries. The only difference is that in America, both parties basically are abiding by the exact same masters, capitalism. So there's no like, you know, any kind of like ideological difference there. And in Turkey, you could say that the ideological difference is not that severe either, but it's certainly a little bit more, it's a little different than America in the sense that like civil liberties do get pretty aggressively rolled back over the course of like a 20-year regime where Erdogan has been able to also successfully manipulate the public into voting for a referendum and change the constitution of the Turkey from a parliamentary system to a presidential one. Let me explain to you like how countries outside of like the Western sphere of influence and power operate. In the Western sphere of influence and power, no matter what the government is, it doesn't really matter all that much. It's usually going to be, you know, a lifeless, faceless, pro-corporate structure no matter what happens, right? And both ideologically speaking, everyone's a neoliberal, everyone's eating good, right? It doesn't matter if the Republicans are in power, it doesn't matter if the Democrats are in power. But of course, the Republicans will like stuff up and, I don't know, like promote culture war issues, wedge issues, things of that nature. In a country like Turkey, however, there are actually winners and losers, right? Like in the corporate structure, obviously corporations are still king. Obviously, there's a lot of, you know, capitalism where regardless of the system of governance, there are ideological differences between certain party leadership. But more importantly than that, when they come into power, they basically use the entire government coffers to their advantage. Like they use the treasury like it's their own personal purse, you know, greatly beefing up their own wealth and also solidifying their system of support by bringing up other wealthy people or other business owners into this increasingly more monopolized system of both sphere of influence and also way of, you know, producing commodities. So it works a little bit in the opposite direction. When Erdogan won originally, like he brought his own people that are ideologically motivated to be on his side into positions of prominence and gave them incredible contracts, gave them favorable contracts, deregulated specifically, and also even bullied the competing companies in that industry, bullied them out of the fucking, bullied them out of the marketplace, basically made it untenable for them to not be pro-Erdogan. So, of course, all of the oligarchs in Turkey were brought to heel. They all became pro-Erdogan. And in that process, like the mafia, he's also getting a cut from the contracts. He's putting his, children also in positions of power in these companies inside of this corporate structure. That's basically how that works in Turkey. It's a little bit different than America in that regard, where it's more transparent, it's more corrupt openly. You know what I mean? Whereas like corruption is built into the system in the United States of America. I always use this example where bribery in Pakistan is seen as like this barbaric tradition, right? Whereas we have something very different here in the West. We have corporate lobbying. Corporate lobbying is regulated, it's legal, and therefore it's somehow different than bribery. It's not. It's not different than bribery. It's the same shit. We just have a different name for it, and we like to act like here in the West that we are above that kind of thing when we're absolutely not above that kind of thing. And in countries that are not as developed, or not inside of the Western, not directly inside of the Western sphere of influence, you see that kind of open corruption, whether it be Latin American countries, whether it be Turkey, whether it be fucking, countries in the East, Far East. There are very similar structures that are somehow very different, okay, in the way that it operates. Is Erdogan one of the richest people in Turkey like Putin is in Russia? Yes. Erdogan and Putin and people like that are actually way wealthier than like the fucking billionaires that you see on the Forbes list. They have the entire country's treasury, the entire country's purse as their own personal purse. That level of wealth and power is unimaginable. No, not like Trump. Trump is, brother, if you think Trump is anywhere near as fucking wealthy as Erdogan or Putin, you're delusional. Does he even have $5 million to pay E.G. and Carol? Like, I don't think Trump has shit. Trump is a fucking broke boy, dude. These people are the real fucking power brokers and the real wealthy people. Ultimately, a lot of people want to vote against him because domestically, he's a fucking gigantic, corrupt, monstrous piece of shit who is actually also very religiously repressive. He's awful. If you put Trump instead of Erdogan, the result will be the same probably. I mean, the thing is, Erdogan has a shitload more power and a shitload more leeway, probably a lot smarter than Donald Trump too. You don't speak about people like Vladimir Putin or Erdogan in the same terms that you do about like the comically stupid fucking American presidents. George W. Bush is a puppet. Trump is a puppet ultimately, right? He had some tendencies that leaned away from like corporate masters and whatever the fuck they wanted him to do. But like Erdogan, Vladimir Putin, and the like, they operate on their own speed. Erdogan got huge support even in earthquake cities. Erdogan got huge support especially in the areas struck by the earthquake, my friend. He got 70 to 79% support in areas that were directly like 100,000 people were fucking murdered because of the Erdogan regime and their consistent deregulation as they offered fat fucking contracts to their friends who were contractors, right? Who were like pro-Erdogan contractors as they refused to regulate these areas. These people lied to the public when they built these fucking houses and they butchered them. They butchered hundreds of thousands of people. And then the surviving people, they licked their fucking wounds. They looked around and they mourned the losses of their friends. And then they fucking turned around and voted for Recep Tayyip Erdogan. This is why I always say, like, one aspect that's oftentimes not talked about in a country like Turkey is that Recep Tayyip Erdogan is more popular than American presidents are in America. Like, that's something you got to remember. Like, this motherfucker, for all of his, like, horrifying nonsense and all of his fuckery in the media, has still been able to captivate 51% of the population consistently, whether it be a coalition that he builds with the Nationalist Party or not. Ultimately, he's been able to do this for like 2 decades, almost 3 decades now. And people don't understand it. Like, they think people in America don't understand it. How much of it is anti-NATO stance? Yeah, that's a laughable fucking notion. If you think Turkish people give a fuck about NATO, I saw that coverage in America where people are like, this is, the opposition leader is going to be pro-NATO. The opposition leader is going to be more pro-NATO. It's like, bro, no one cares. Are you joking? I'm not particularly fond of the Social Democratic Coalition either, but it doesn't fucking matter. You just want someone who is going to be like at least marginally less corrupt. That's the main goal. For Turkish people that go out and vote, the ones that vote against Recep Tayyip Erdogan, they're voting for someone who is just marginally, just a little bit less corrupt. Please, just, we're paying these fucking taxes. Give us back something in return and don't fucking pocket it for your sons and your daughters and your fucking, wife and your family immediately. Yeah, someone in the chat said, Abi ne NATO'su ya? Ekmek 8 lira. Exactly. Bread is 8 lira. What fucking NATO are you talking about? You think motherfuckers care about NATO? They got no future, dog. Every aspect of their life is like riddled with, mini tyrants that are corrupt, leading all the way up to the fucking, major leagues. The economy is so bad, but people still vote for Erdogan for them, so it does not even matter. Yeah, because he's like a cultist, dude. It's like Trump supporters. Trump could literally be like, I hate all of you. I hope you fucking die in Alabama, and they will still vote for him. Okay? They're like, that's my leader. I love him. And the worst thing that could have fucking happened, and I will never forgive America for this, was the coup d'etat that occurred in Turkey. Because this result, this time around, this election cycle would have been an actual dub. Because this current result that you saw, where his this is the lowest he's ever had in popularity, not making it through the fucking first round of the election, going to a runoff. This result would have been the result last time around, but then the fucking coup happened. And when the coup happened, he solidified his support so much so that he was able to put a referendum together and in 2018 change the fucking constitution of the country from a parliamentary structure to a fucking presidential one. Let's just start from the top before we get to like the American, the American process. Let's take a look. So Turkey election, your guide to how the electoral system works. There are more than 64 million eligible voters in Turkey, including the close to 5 million first-time voters. More than 64 million people are eligible to vote in Turkey's presidential and parliamentary elections on May 14th, with Recep Tayyip Erdogan facing his toughest test in 20 years. Every 5 years, there's a parliamentary and a presidential election. That's what's going on right now. Here's everything you need to know about how the electoral system works. So Turkey used to have a parliamentary system. They transitioned to a presidential system in July 2018, a month after Erdogan won the presidential election. How did they do that? Well, there was a martial law instituted in the immediate aftermath of the coup d'etat that had happened the year prior, and then there was a referendum vote held. The powers of the president were broadened after a 2017 referendum approving the change to an executive presidency. So just understand that. Originally, it was a parliamentary system, and the role of the president was like non-existent. Basically, the president was a symbolic figurehead. He was like the guy that you send overseas, not the one who's like dealing with domestic and foreign policy directly. The party leader would be the one that head the parliament. It would be the person who was the actual person who was like in charge. Now, of course, like the prime minister was the one in charge, right? So that was also Erdogan at a certain point. So he swapped all of the powers of the presidency and then kept running the country. He was always running the AKP, the party that he's the leader of since AKP came to power. But he very openly was doing it now, right, as the president. The post of the prime minister was abolished, and the president also became the head of government. In the new system, voters elect the president directly. So how does the voting work in the Turkish elections? Citizens vote for party lists under proportional representation rather than the candidates. 600 members to be a part of the parliament. A party needs to gain 7% of the vote or be a part of an alliance that does. You first vote for the president, and then you secondly vote for the party. You citizens vote for a candidate, and for the president to become the president, the vote needs at least 50% of the presidential votes are needed to secure the position. Erdogan fell short of the 50%. That's why there's going to be a runoff. Less than 50% of votes in a runoff between the two top scoring candidates will be had. So it's going to be a runoff on the 28th. A second round of elections between Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the opposition coalition, and Erdogan, who has his own little coalition as well. So in April 2022, the election threshold was reduced from 10% to 7%. A law changed the way seats are distributed among members of the party alliance. Parliamentary seats were previously allocated according to total votes received by an alliance. Now the seats will be allocated according to the votes that a party receives individually. Alliances are therefore used so that parties can surpass the election threshold. This also pits parties within an alliance against one another. A lot of this stuff is pretty basic in a multi-party system. America is a two-party system with like some other parties on the side, but they're like laughed out of the room for the most part. But the reason why there's this is what happens. Like, it's supposed to be more representational. It's supposed to give you like a diversity of ideas. Obviously, there's still different ways of coalition forming and numerous different ways of basically creating opportunities for gridlock. I think there's also one other component to this that like a lot of people in the West don't know about, and even people in Turkey will probably regard in a more reactionary perspective, which is that Erdogan juices the fucking country. He steals a lot of money, but he also gives a lot of cash to underdeveloped parts of the country. He doesn't actually engage in like even development in the same way that like Xi Jinping does, for example. He gives them a lot of cash, though. There is a tremendous amount of welfare, but also on top of that, there is very uneven development, but also not great development in areas that are in desperate need of development, but ones that are basically aesthetic. The example I can show you is basically, for example, taking the fucking earthquake funds and like building roads that got eviscerated by the earthquake, right? Why did the German Turks always vote Erdogan? I don't understand it. Them. I've told you this before. The reason why a lot of German Turks, and this is a major diaspora, so like it is actually significant. German Turks vote for AKP because they want to live like kings in Turkey with their euros. Exactly. They don't live in the shitty economy in Turkey, so they don't give a fuck. They don't care. They live in Germany. They only experience Turkey as tourists, and the euro is way stronger than the fucking Turkish lira. So when they come back to Turkey, they only see it as like a travel travel destination where their money is more powerful. That is wrong, else all diaspora would vote for AKP. UK and USA voted anti-Erdogan. Yes, there's also a difference. There's a major difference there that the German diaspora, and I just already talked about it, is significantly more powerful and has a sense of community. And that community revolves around like how they get shit on by Germans, the white Germans at least. So in that, where they feel like they've been ousted from like normal German public life because of all the anti-Muslim sentiment expressed towards Turks, the German form of racism that gets that gets thrown around a lot against Turkish people there, that chastising forms a stronger bond with like being whatever, like, pro-Tayyip Turk, because they see Tayyip as like shitting on the German government. When you get pushed away from the rest of public life, you end up holding on to your community. And if your community is built around like being very right-wing and Muslim, then that's what's going to happen. That's part of the reason why I have a lot of German Turks who are in here who are fans of mine, because I do routinely defend the rights of Muslims in the Western world. So they come in here and they're like, oh, this guy's spitting a lot of truth. I like what he's saying. So then they come in here, and then when they hear what I have to say about fucking Erdogan and Islamists in Turkey, they're like, whoa, hold up. What the fuck? That's how you get to that chatter who's an 8-month subscriber who likes everything I have to say about defending Muslims existing in the Western world in peace without any kind of like racial animosity launched towards them. But they don't realize that like when it comes to domestic policy in Turkey, I have a very dramatically different attitude. It's still the same principles, but I just don't understand why it's unacceptable to support Erdogan and AKP when they put Western liberal democracies to shame. See, exactly. This is exactly what I said. Look, there you go. He thinks that Recep Tayyip Erdogan is speaking truth to power against Western imperialists. They see the headlines in Germany about like how he's fucking sticking it to Merkel, and then they go, oh, that's great. Because what Merkel represents, or what, the German politics represents for them, is a shitload of hatred. Let's watch the American. Now that I gave you a little bit of what's going on in Turkey, let's watch the American analysis on the situation.
Have a big impact on the U.S. and its NATO allies. Voters went to the polls yesterday after a natural disaster and an economic collapse put the country's longtime leader under heavy pressure. President Erdogan is claiming success this morning, but he's expected to face a runoff election later this month. Remy Inocencio has more on the future of this important U.S. partner.
Bro, every fucking American outlet that I've seen on this literally has talked about NATO, which is so funny. Or like how close Erdogan is to Russia and how Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu is going to be more pro-NATO and more anti-Russia. It's like, dog, no one cares. In Turkey, it is so laughable to think that that is the reason why they're voting for one person over the other. It is hilarious. It's so insanely stupid. Like, motherfuckers want to buy bread, dog. They don't give a fuck about NATO. Yeah, people are fucking committing suicide because of this election, and motherfuckers in America are like, yeah, it's the NATO. Yeah, dude, they're killing themselves because they're not because Recep Tayyip Erdogan is not pro-NATO enough. It's fucking such a ridiculous take.
Turks by the thousands waved flags and cheered a seemingly triumphant President Recep Tayyip Erdogan.
Seçimlerde
We've already surpassed our closest competitor by 2.6 million votes, he said. But these party songs may be too soon. Twin earthquakes in February that killed more than 50,000 people, inflation near 2-decade highs, and a currency that's crashed against the dollar have shaken once seemingly invincible support for Erdogan. He came to power in 2003. More people than ever now want change. Critics say Erdogan has amassed too much power as president, diluted democracy, and derailed secularism on which the country was founded. Supporters say he has brought Islam back. Both men have agreed to a runoff, if needed, held in 2 weeks. For Washington and much of Western Europe, an open secret. The end of Erdogan would be their new Turkish delight. For CBS Mornings, Remy Inocencio, London.
All right, you want to know what America's opinion on Turkey is? Here, let's take a look.
Power. Turkey's longtime leader is now facing a runoff election.
I got to pee. I'll be back in a second.
Huge implications for the NATO alliance and the war in Ukraine.
Huge.
This morning, it looks
guys,
like
huge implications. I mean, oh my God. It's like, bro, Erdogan is like Yeah, Erdogan gets a lot of money from Russia, which is why he takes this like weird wishy-washy middle of the ground stance on Russia. But Erdogan is also a dog of NATO. So what do you mean? He's the #1 fucking purveyor of Bayraktars. What the fuck are you talking about? It doesn't matter. He's always gonna do the NATO bidding. He's just trying to get his fucking money up. He's trying to get his fucking money up and not his fucking funny up. He always has played both sides. Literally. Recep Tayyip Erdogan's foreign policy strategy is actually where I personally think he is smart. I have said this before. Turks will get mad at me for saying this, but that's the reason why he captivates so many fucking people in the diaspora. He always plays both sides and he always comes out on top. The economy domestically is shit, but his foreign policy comes across to the broader Islamic world as like this brave champion that is anti-imperialist. Meanwhile, he's doing everything. He's doing everything that they want. Remember the 1 minute thing that happened many years ago to all the Turks in the chat right now when Recep Tayyip Erdogan, what was it, G20 or something, got up and like spoke out against fucking Israel? What did he do? They still fucking sold weapons parts to Israel to use in Gaza. They kept doing that. Or Davos, yeah, at Davos. So it doesn't fucking matter. He will the way he presents himself and the way he conducts himself is very different than the way that they continue wheeling and dealing behind closed doors. Turkey kept training Israeli pilots, you know what I mean? In that process where even after Mavi Marmara, where the IDF, the occupying force, actually fucking killed a ship full of people that were trying to bring in supplies for survival, okay, like medical aid and food into Gaza. They fucking drop shipped into it with an attack helicopter and butchered all of those people. That was a big point of contention. Erdogan still very much was in support of Israel, even after that, in private. It doesn't matter. What he says in the public eye is very different than how he operates. Same with NATO, same with his allegiance with Russia. That's how this works. He presents himself a certain way, but it doesn't change anything about the way he conducts himself. Like Turkey is still selling Bayraktar 2.0. It's a big point of pride for Turks in general. So like, what's up with that? So is that going to stop? No. So shut the fuck up.
Like Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan has failed to secure the 50% vote threshold to avoid a runoff. Turkey, obviously a key NATO ally, and has the second largest military in the alliance. But Erdogan has maintained close ties with Russia at the same time throughout its brutal invasion of Ukraine. And he continues to block Sweden from joining NATO, which would be a huge blow to Vladimir Putin.
Abi Süleyman Soylu isimli bir bakanımız var. Biden için diyor ki şu an her şeyiyle Erdoğan'ı göndermeye çalışıyor ve Erdoğan'a çekemiyor Batı diyor. So he's saying there's a guy named Süleyman Soylu, a minister. And he's saying that Biden hates Erdogan and he wants Erdogan gone, and Biden is terrified of Erdogan and the West can't handle Erdogan. And Haskoloğlu is saying you follow the American press, you live there, you might be one of the most influential Turks in the United States of America. From the perspective of the United States, when you look at Turkey, can you explain if this is true or not? The answer is no, for the same things that I just mentioned. Turkey is always going to be a wild card in the NATO alliance, but Turkey's very much an effective part of NATO. So no, I don't think that like the United States of America is that terrified of the Erdogan regime, because Erdogan does not rock the boat when in places where it actually matters. If he feels like America is fucking him over with defense contracts that he has due to NATO, and then turn around and get like the S-2000 missile systems from Russia, and turn around to Russia and get like missile systems from them, he'll do that. But ultimately, wherever it matters, where it actually matters, when it comes down to it, when push comes to shove and they need like fucking arms or provisions, or the S4, is it S4000? 400? Sorry, I fucked it up. S2000 is the Honda, the car. S2000, which is a very sick car, but that's not what we're talking about here. Okay? Erdogan.
Amerika'dan aldığın talimatla mı yapacaksın? Biden'dan aldığın talimatla mı yapacaksın? Biden Erdoğan'ı düşürmemiz lazım diye talimatı verdi. Bunu ben biliyorum. Bunu benim bütün halkım biliyor.
Ya siktir lan. Ya bırak Allah aşkına. Yapmayın abi, böyle bir şey yok yani. Amerika'nın sikinde bile değil. Erdoğan yine bayraktarları sallıyor Ukrayna'ya. Sikinde bile değil Amerika'nın o yüzden yani. Yapmayın etmeyin abi. Like, I'm sure America would prefer Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu for stability. That much is true. But, like, it don't matter. It's not that big of a point of contention that Erdogan continues to run the country from the perspective of the American security apparatus. You know what I mean? They don't give a fuck.
Şimdi yarın sandıklar demek ki Biden'a da bir cevap verecek. Onun için durmak yok. Yarına kadar bu gece Türkiye yüzyılını yine Ümraniye ile birlikte inşa edeceğiz.
He said the voting results are going to be answering Biden as well. I mean, this is bu masadayız biz lafı. Turks want to be prominent in the national sphere of influence really bad, and this makes them feel like they have a say or something. You know what I mean? So that's why he's like hyping that narrative. He'll say shit.
Any comment on the Turkish elections? It looks like there might be a dispute over President Erdogan's.
Oh, is that right? I didn't get any results.
The opposition party are claiming they are leading, and state media is.
Exactly. There you go. That's the level of seriousness that America is taking the elections. Oh, man. He's like, what? What? I didn't hear about it, Jack. I don't know. What's Turkey? Is it Thanksgiving time?
Erdogan is leading.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? No, look, I just hope it goes, whoever wins, wins. I mean, there's enough problems in that part.
Bro, they're farting at the Turks, dude. There you go. He doesn't give a fuck, dude. What do you mean? He'll come out and he'll say some shit like, "Oh, Erdogan is bad," blah blah blah, and then the Turks will make a bigger deal out of it. But like, that's the level of attention. It's not what is it like? Not even making it to a security briefing that morning. That's crazy. İki tarafında NATO ile ilgili bir sıkıntısı olmadığı için Amerika'nın sikine bile değil. Aynen öyle. Both parties will literally do whatever the fuck America wants them to do, okay? Erdogan does it, and so will fucking Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, especially as it pertains to NATO. There is no care or consideration here because, you know, as far as NATO goes, like, they're gonna do whatever the fuck America wants. This is a pretty funny take from Russia.
Если кандидат с труднопроизносимой фамилией одержит победу, Турцию ждут резкие изменения в отношениях с Россией. Кылыч Дароглу уже пообещал присоединиться к антироссийским санкциям Запада. Если коротко, то он поклонник НАТО. Выступает за тесный союз с Западом и США.
Yeah, with Kılıçdaroğlu, you get like more pro-NATO takes, but and maybe less like Russian support. And that's pretty much it though. Like, it just ends there. It starts and ends there. It's not like there's going to be like a dramatic difference as far as like Recep Tayyip Erdogan's support for NATO. Erdogan is doing a lot of fucking NATO shit.
Знает английский, французский, это, естественно, не проблема, но ключевое. Он мечтает затащить Турцию.
That's obviously not a problem, but the key thing is that he dreams of dragging Turkey into the EU. Yeah, okay. That's never going to happen. Anyone who thinks that Turkey, a country with like almost 100 million Muslims, is going to become a part of the European Union is literally basically drinking so much Kool-Aid that I don't even know if they're in the stratosphere still. That is never going to happen. Half of the political capital that Erdogan holds right now is related to the fact that he was able to take 6 million Syrians not into Europe, but into the Turkish borders, which currently does not connect into Europe. If you think that Europe sees you anything but a holdover state, even the Turks in the chat are like, dude, we're not Muslim, we're not Muslim. Dog, you are a buffer state. But also on top of that, it doesn't matter how not Muslim you are. It doesn't matter how not Muslim you are in your heart of hearts. Okay, first of all, 50% of the country still voted for Erdogan. So, you know, there's more of that kind of Muslim out there than your kind of Muslim. That's number one. And number two, it doesn't matter if you say you're not Muslim because Europe doesn't give a fuck. They don't look at you and go, oh yeah, this guy likes playing League of Legends and like drinks alcohol. They don't think like that. They just think, oh, you're from Turkey, your name is Hasan, or your name is Murat, or your name is Mehmet. You're not European. You're not European stock. If that's your pipe dream, let me just dispel that really quickly for you. It's never gonna happen. You're never gonna be a part of EU. They don't think of you as like a progressive white person. They don't. You're Muslim. Son, I get where you're going, but that was a narrative in the Baltics too before they joined. Brother, you think a geopolitical interest that comes from having like a tiny fucking additional population of Muslims with like mostly Christians joining the European Union as a buffer state between Europe and Russia is the same as, again, and I repeat this, 100 million Muslims? Bro, they took in like fucking 10 Syrian refugees and all hell broke loose. Everyone's like, oh yeah, Hitler had some good ideas. You know what I mean? They're like, all it took was for like some fucking Syrian refugees to come into Europe for Salvini to fucking win and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, you're out of your mind if you think that those motherfuckers are going to be like, yeah, let's bring in 100 million Muslims and offer them free travel. Look at the way they look at Albanians, bro. The fuck are you talking about? UK literally did Brexit. They don't even like Polish people. You think they give a You think they give a fuck, dude? They literally look at Slavs in a almost identical capacity to fucking Hitler's Germany, and you're out here being like, no, 100 million Muslims, like, that's fine. They will definitely allow freedom of travel to 100 million Muslims. Anyway, that's a crazy copium, next level copium. And that is a pipe dream shared by a lot of the more liberal Turks. They don't see you as you know, intellectual peers, okay? They see you as like a scourge. I live here, I know. And I live in America, which is like, ironically, despite the war on terror and a shitload of anti-Islam sentiment, and the way that it presents itself is not immediately as hostile as like fucking European countries are, possibly due to proximity. Because Europe is a lot closer to Muslim countries than the United States of America is.